Hello, this is Dr. Ned Hallowell for Distraction, here with a very special episode made possible by our wonderful sponsor, Landmark College in beautiful, bucolic Putney, Vermont. Landmark, the college of choice for students who learn differently. And of course, with us is one of our perennial most favored guests, Ms. Jessica McCabe, from How to ADHD. She has done more single-handedly to bring the knowledge in a very user-friendly fashion about ADHD to millions of people. She's really an extraordinary representative and spokeswoman for this condition, and a really wonderfully kind and generous person, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. She's with us again today, and Jessica, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm blushing after all of that. Thank you. And hi everyone. It's nice to be back. The world's a little different at the moment with all of us dealing with COVID-19 right now. So some things have changed. So they were talking about what I wanted to do for a topic this time, and I was like, how about making the transition to learning from home? Because that's probably kind of on the top of everybody's list of like, how do I do this right now? Because for a lot of people, a lot of college students right now, this is the first time that you've had to provide your own structure and accountability and stuff. You know, everything's so different. Perfect
topic. So jump right in, and not only college students. I mean, I had kids in first grade. You know, but I know your audience is more the older young people, but. So jump in and give us your thoughts on how to make that transition that millions of people are making right now. How do you learn from home?
Yeah, and it's both. It's whether you're working from home or learning from home or having to do both all of a sudden. It's at first I think it can be really exciting because like, oh my gosh, yes, like I have all this flexibility. I don't have to like sit in a classroom and do the thing and like be there at exactly this certain time, and I don't have to remember to bring my books to class and stuff. Like, there's a lot of freedom, I think, that we get when we make the transition to working or learning from home that can be really exciting. But we find out really quickly, as I did when I started working from home full-time, that freedom is a double-edged sword because a lot of the things that we find restrictive, annoying, or even pointless about work or school actually turns out it supports productivity, and you don't realize that until you don't have that in place anymore. So I think if we're making that transition to learning from home, we have to make sure that those things that we get from school are either still in place or we're putting them in place. And I have an acronym that I like to use for this, which is STACC, but misspelled. So STACC. So the more of these we can stack together, the easier it'll be. And the first one is structure. Like, this is really obvious. It's great to be able to like work with your brain the way that it wants to work. Like for me, when I was in high school, having to wake up super early and be at class by 8 was awful because I tend to do a lot better if I can go to sleep at like 1 or 2 in the morning and wake up at 10 a.m. So if I'm now working or learning from home, I can do that, right? I can work in a way that works for my brain. I can work at a time that works for my brain. But if I have no structure or no schedule at all, my brain's going to be like, cool, I just won't work, right? Like, you know, when you go to school, you know, like, this is what time class starts. So this is when I need to shower. This is when I want to put on pants so that I can get there in time. And when you're at home, if you don't have class starting at a certain time, like suddenly showers become optional. So do pants. So does class. If we have no structure at all, things kind of fall apart. So I think for ADHD brains in general, like a flexible structure is really good, but some structure is critical because we're kind of time blind. We don't necessarily know how much time has passed. So those of us who are time blind tend to time slip. So I'll get to my homework or I'll get to my work or whatever in like an hour. And then, you know, we start playing a video game and we have no idea how it is all of a sudden tomorrow. So that's why structure is really important. Another one that we don't, I think about really is transition time.
Is that the T in STACC?
That's the T, yeah. So the S is for structure, T is for transition time. When you have a commute to school, or even if you're just walking from class to class, your brain gets a chance to kind of process what just happened and start gearing up for the next thing. Whereas if we're just sitting at our desk and going from one subject to another, we don't give ourselves that chance to transition. You know, expecting ourselves to go straight from science to math when we're sitting in the same spot and haven't even gotten up, that can be hard. Without transition time, ADHDers are impaired with transitioning. So, So if we don't give ourselves that time to transition, we can often get mentally stuck.
Mm-hmm. Before you get to A, let me just mention our sponsor, Landmark College in beautiful, beautiful Putney, Vermont, the college of choice for students who learn differently. Okay, what's A? What's A?
So just some examples for transitions really quickly. Like if you're used to a long drive to school or whatever, and that clears your head in the morning, try meditating. Find a different way to clear your head. Or do a brain dump. Like in the morning, there's something called morning pages where you just like write 3 pages of like whatever's in your brain. And then you're able to get that out of the way and then transition and focus on whatever you're doing. And there's also a lot of things that we do when we're at work or at school that we may not think of as not working because we're at school or we're at work. But when we start doing them at home, we start feeling like, oh, I'm not actually doing something productive. But they are. They're transitions, like staring out the window or getting up and stretching or, I don't know, go pet the dog. Like do some things while you work that aren't productive because actually they are. They're transitions.
Yes.
Yes. The A is for accountability. So at school, you hand in assignments in person and you kind of get this sense of accomplishment. And if you don't show up to class, somebody knows, somebody notices. No one notices if you show up to your desk late and like spend half the day playing Borderlands. Right? Except maybe the person you live with, and that's not really the best person that you want to be accountable to because they live with you, like they see everything. And that gets uncomfortable really quickly. So it's a good idea either, find a classmate or some sort of accountability buddy, like somebody you meet with on a regular basis to talk about your goals, talk about what's going on in your classes, talk about what you're struggling with, what you have to do that week, what you're behind on, that kind of thing. And if you check in, like for me, what works is once a week. If you check in with them once a week and then maybe like text them in between, like have a video call once a week, then text them in between, then they can provide some accountability for you and help keep you on track. One of the things that I had trouble with in college, and I actually was going to campus, but I just didn't have accountability. My parents weren't checking on me, like college professors didn't seem to care if I came to class or not. So I didn't have the accountability I needed. And so I fell behind. I wasn't showing up to class. I wasn't doing the things I needed. But if I had somebody to check in once a week, I think I would have stayed on track.
Yeah.
So,
it's so true. You still have 2 C's to get to.
I have 2 C's. Yes, I should get there. So connection. Connection is the first C.
My favorite.
So far we have structure, transition time, accountability, and connection. We get a lot of connection at school that we don't think about. We find people to sit and have lunch with, like somebody annoys us, in the desk next to us, whatever. But we have human connection. And when we don't get enough of that, that's really bad for us.
You're telling me, boy, that's my favorite one. You're so true.
Right. Social interactions are important, and without them we get lonely. And losing touch with work friends might be especially hard for extroverts. I'm sure they're going out of their minds right now.
Introverts need connection too. Yep.
Yeah, even introverts need human contact once in a while. And we might get more than we want at school surrounded by hundreds of people and be ready to come home and kind of like snuggle up under our blankets at night. But if we're not getting that social interaction during the day, then we need to make sure that we are getting it after school or in the middle. So right now, especially, it's a really good idea to find creative ways to socialize. So, do video chats, or instead of text messages, send video messages. Set alarms for when you'd usually walk to class with someone and give them a call. There's a Chrome extension that lets you watch Netflix together online. So if you have Netflix, they have Netflix, you guys can watch together. There's something called Discord. It's meant for gamers, but How to ADHD has a Discord. A lot of people hang out in there and just connect. They're playing Jackbox. They're playing video games together. You can have a virtual lunch with somebody. But without our built-in opportunities for connection, it's really easy for us to just let it slip off the radar. And it's really important to nudge it back on because otherwise we get lonely, it can contribute to depression, all kinds of issues.
One of my problems with social distancing is, I think what they should really call it is physical distance, because we don't want to preserve social distance. We want to preserve our social connection.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And actually, the physical distancing has helped a lot of people connect socially. I've noticed a lot of people are going, okay, I don't want to be isolated. Let me reach out. Let me call somebody I haven't called in a while. And it's really neat. I feel more connected to a lot of people right now than I did before this quote unquote social distancing, which is nice.
Right.
And then the last one is cues. So at school, we get a lot of cues or signals that it's time to learn. Your teacher starts talking, you know to listen. You get to class, you know to sit down. You open your textbook, you know you're about to read. You throw on your headphones and a study playlist at the library. You know it's time to study. But if you're home, most of the cues tell us to do other things, right? Like relax or clean up or, take care of the dog. If we don't have cues built in at home that it's time to work, we need to build those. And even if we do have cues that it's time to work, like I've been working at home for a while and I found out all of my cues were telling me it's time to work, and I actually needed to create cues that it was time to relax. But what we need here is separation between home and work or home and school. So here are my cues that it's time to study. Maybe you switch out your mouse pad, so you have your study mouse pad, and then you have your gaming mouse pad, or you have a separate desk, or whatever it is. Like ideally a dedicated space where it's like, this is my study spot. Like I've got everything that I need to feel comfortable here and all my study materials, whatever. But even if you have to use the same spot for two different things, there are different cues you can use. A candle, a different mug, or whatever. But giving our brain cues, okay, now it's time to do this, is a great idea. And some of those cues are already built in. If you have a study playlist that you use at the library, throw on that same study playlist when you're home, and that'll get you back into that mindset a lot easier than trying to just, get yourself to stop playing, again, Borderlands or Animal Crossings or whatever. Throw on that cue. And that's pretty much it. Last thing I'll say is if you are at home and there's other people around that keep interrupting you while you're trying to focus, huge issue for people with ADHD because it can be so hard for us to get in the zone in the first place. Using a cup system can be really helpful. So Brendan Mahan of ADHD Essentials has this brilliant system of cups. So he has one yellow cup, one red, one green. If you have the red cup on top, it means I'm working, don't interrupt me.
On top of what?
On top of each other. So like you stack these 3 cups together, and if you have the red cup on top, that means I'm working, don't interrupt me.
Where are these cups stacked? They're stacked on top of what?
Oh, on your desk.
Okay, so wherever you're sitting, you have a stack of 3 cups.
Yeah, so wherever you're sitting, have a stack of 3 cups. If a red cup is on top, it can mean I'm working, don't interrupt me. If you switch it so that the yellow one's on top, it can mean I can pause if it's important. And the green means it's okay to chat. So somebody walking by can know if it's okay to talk to you or not, because otherwise they don't know. They can't tell if you're working or not. They can't tell if it's okay to interrupt or not. And if you're living with people, probably the odds of them just not talking to you for 8 hours straight, not super likely. So having some sort of cue to them as to when it's okay to interrupt you and when it's not can be really helpful to help you maintain focus.
That is a great idea. In my office, I always leave the door open, and I get so annoyed when people just walk in and assume that I'm ready to talk to them. I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to put a stack of 3 cups, and if the red cup is on top, then that means leave me alone. That's a great idea, Jessica. I love that. That is so simple. That's, as always, you're so brilliant.
Well, this was Brendan's. This is Brendan Mahan of ADHD Essentials came up with that one.
So that makes you brilliant for knowing him. So let me see if I can remember now. S is for structure. T is for transition. A is for accountability. The first C is for connection. And the second C is for cues.
Yeah. Hey, cool. Acronyms are helpful.
Didn't I do well to remember all that?
You did so good. I'm so impressed.
No, it's because they're so good. They're so memorable. I wouldn't remember if they weren't memorable.
Well, thank you. I hope they're helpful for people. Don't expect to be able to just put everything in place all at once. It takes time, honestly. It takes time to build up the scaffolding we need to support ourselves in working or learning from home. And right now, with everything that's going on, it's very distracting. So, be gentle with yourself if you're a little less productive than usual right now. I think a lot of people are going to understand.
They sure will. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Go to howtoadhd.com to see all of Jessica's fun and informative videos about navigating life with the curious condition so misleadingly called ADHD. And, of course, thank you to our sponsor, Landmark College in beautiful Putney, Vermont, the college of choice for students who learn differently. Learn more about how they help students with ADHD succeed in college at lcdistraction.org. Again, Jessica McCabe, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure as always.
Distraction is created by Sounds Great Media. The podcast is recorded and mixed by the genius of Mr. Pat Keogh. And our producer is the brilliantly intelligent, imaginative, and effervescent Sarah Guertin, who I just learned has a cat who keeps her house clear of mice. I'm Dr. Ned Hallowell. Thanks so very much for listening.